Where is fancy bread? In the heart or in the head? So, it is October. October the 7th, Friday, or excuse me, Saturday. Unfortunately, you're not getting this video until October the 8th, which is Sunday. But I'm recording October 7th, Saturday. And we are reviewing tonight Psycho from 1960, Alfred Hitchcock. It is on the poster, and in the book, qualifies for something in the book, which is why I chose it for tonight. But I'm getting ahead of myself. A few quick disclaimers real quick. These videos are completely unedited, so whatever comes out of my mouth is what comes out of my mouth. If I say the wrong thing, I apologize, and normally I'll make corrections in the comments underneath the video. And they're unfiltered, so if your kids are in the room, you probably want to ask them to leave or put your headphones on, because I'm going to say, adult things and adult situations will come up. And the other thing is there will be spoilers, especially for the movie that I am reviewing, which is Psycho. And sometimes I talk about other movies and give some spoilers away for other movies just because I'm talking about film and there's so much related, especially in film. But have no fear. You can look at the list of movies below this video. I'll put a whole list of movies that I talk about, and I will give headers, especially spoilers. So if you want to avoid movies that I give spoilers for, just look at the header spoilers and find out which movies I actually give spoilers for, and some movies that I don't give spoilers for I just mentioned. Okay, the disclaimer's out of the way. This is challenge number 3, low budget, big box office. Psycho, 1960. That was the year released. Aspect ratio 1.37:1. Running time an hour and 49 minutes. Genre horror / mystery thriller. Rated R. Okay, it's October, and I'm like, dude, October, I've got to review some horror films, and I'll probably throw an extra review or two in just because there are horror films that I would like to review that are not on the poster. I was like, okay, are there any horror films on the poster? Can I find any? And I went through the whole list of the movies on the poster, and I found 3 that are undeniable horrors. And Psycho is one of them. Absolutely considered a horror. Whether you consider it a horror or not nowadays, I don't know. But when it came out, absolutely a horror. Alien, the original Alien, is on the poster, and it's absolutely considered a horror. And The Shining, absolutely considered a horror, definitely. There are a couple other movies on the poster that I thought, okay, they're borderline. Silence of the Lambs, some people consider it horror. Parasite as well. Some people might consider that horror. But technically, according to IMDb, neither one of those is horror. So I had to pick a film that was actually a horror, and this was one of them. Okay, starring Anthony Perkins. Oh my God. I cannot say enough about Anthony Perkins in this film. He is brilliant. How he did not... hold on, I want to check. I want to check if he was nominated. No, he wasn't even nominated. How was he not nominated? God, he's so brilliant in this film. So brilliant. And seamlessly brilliant in this film. I can't believe he wasn't even nominated for an Oscar. Anthony Perkins... Janet Leigh, which most people think of, they think of Psycho, and the first thing that comes to mind is Janet Leigh. Vera Miles and John Gavin. Directed by Alfred Hitchcock, produced by Alfred Hitchcock, and I thought this was written by him, but it's not. Written by Joseph Stefano and Robert Bloch, based on his novel. I didn't realize this was a novel. Great, part of me wants to look up the novel and buy it and read it. I have no shortage of books, as you can see behind me, and I do love horror. I mean, Stephen King is my favorite, so it would be interesting to pick up this novel and see if see how good it was. Music by Bernard Herrmann, who did a fantastic job. This music is great for the time. If you tried to get away with a soundtrack like this nowadays, it just wouldn't work. So we're talking about a film made in 1960, which may be, I would have to double check, but may be the oldest film so far that I have reviewed. How old? What year was What year was Clash of the Titans? Because that was a pretty old one too, wasn't it? Clash of the Titans, Easy Rider. Clash of the Titans was 81. That wasn't as old as I thought. Easy Rider was 69. So I have a funny feeling so far this is the oldest film that I have reviewed. And to be honest, I find it fantastic. I think it's wonderful. I don't care that it was made in 1960. It's very, very well done. Awards received. It was nominated for 4 Academy Awards and didn't win any. Okay, I'm shocked. I didn't look up, I wouldn't have a good knowledge of films from 1960, so I wouldn't be able to look up and go, oh, I could roughly guess as to blah, 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 why it didn't win. I don't know films of 1960, so I wouldn't be able to do that. But I am still shocked. It's such a fantastic film that holds its own even to today. 40, 50, 60 years later, 63 years later, and still holds its own and is very entertaining, very good, and very well done, and didn't win any Academy Awards. Shock. But it did win a Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actress, Janet Leigh. So I wanted to mention that. Why did you choose this particular film? It's on the poster, and I'm trying to go through the poster, and it's October. The month notoriously known for horror films. So I had to review a horror film, even though, like I said, like I started off with, some people might not consider this a horror simply because the time, 1960. At the time, horror films were not what horror films are today, 2023, not at all, 60 years later, but absolutely considered a horror film for its day. And very well done. Have you seen this before? Yes, I've seen it before. Yes, I own it. I was not even born, so I could not have seen it in the theater, although I would love to have seen it in the theater. That would have been neat. Would you recommend this film? Yes, I absolutely would recommend it. I get that parts of it are a little campy, and I have notes about that. Parts are a little campy, definitely signs of the time, but you're looking at a film from 1960 where film was just completely different. It was a completely different style, and you just got to accept that and then watch it for the story that it is, and the directing, and it's really well done. And as far as like a historic film, a classic, I mean, this is absolutely a classic. One of the categories in the book is a movie classic, and I totally could have used this as that, but wanted to use this as low budget, big box office instead. Which character were you most able to identify with or connect with? In what way? I couldn't. Here's another one where I just really couldn't. I was so involved with the movie, I couldn't think about, like, who do I identify with? Like, nobody. So I just didn't answer that one. Best line or memorable quote. There are several, but I'm sure the big one that most people know is "A boy's best friend is his mother." Of course, everybody knows that one, but there are other really good lines that come from this. I wouldn't even harm a fly. And what was the other one? There's another great one. Oh, it might come to my mind later, but there's another great line from this movie that a lot of people know. But I'm sure the big one is "A boy's best friend is his mother." Absolutely, yeah. Were you surprised by the ending? What would you do differently? No, I wasn't surprised by the ending, and I wouldn't do a thing different. There's not a thing that I would do different in this entire movie. Not at all. I think it's brilliant. It's hard to watch this movie with what I constantly call new eyes. And I can't... I don't know if I mentioned this before. I can't take credit for that that saying, new eyes, like trying to look at something with new eyes. That's something I get from my absolutely favorite comedian, Gallagher. And in one of his things, he talks about having new eyes, looking at the world with new eyes. And I say that often now because of him. And so it's hard for me to watch this movie with new eyes or try to get someone who has never seen this movie. That is a challenge, and I do have a note for that. And I might as well say it now. I'm gonna take a side track from the book and say this note now. The misdirection in this film is so fucking good. Like, it's amazing. Because, like, the first, this movie is an hour 50, okay? And okay, spoilers. Okay, Janet Leigh doesn't get killed until an hour into the film, so you're talking just over halfway, okay? So, for most of this movie, I would say 40 minutes of the whole beginning, maybe more, maybe 50 minutes, that whole interaction when she finally gets to the Bates Motel only takes about 10 minutes until she dies. So we're talking 40, 45, maybe 50 minutes of the film. We are focused on something completely else. Her stealing this money. It's so, misdirection is so well done that we think that this movie is about her. Obviously, we don't think Norman is the lead. We think she's the lead. We haven't even met Norman yet. And this money, they make it so important that she's stealing this money and she wants to be in this relationship with this guy. I'm sure I have notes that I'm fucking up later on, but I'm going to say it now. It's brilliantly done. It's so well done. And it sucks a little bit that the title of the movie is Psycho. And when you're watching the open credits say, starring Anthony Perkins. So we're like, oh great. So who the misdirection doesn't work when you have the title of the movie that is contradictory to the first 40 minutes that you're trying to misdirect. You're trying to do a great job of misdirecting, but the movie title is in contrast to that. And you said your lead is a male, not a female. So we're like, the misdirect doesn't quite work. And the music of the opening, like when they first show just the titles, just everybody's name and the title, the music is so daunting and scary and wonderful. He did such a great job with the music, Herman. Bernard Herrmann, that you're waiting for something bigger than just this relationship, just this stolen money, the music. So the misdirection works and it doesn't work. It's brilliant and it isn't, because you've got this contradictory thing going on that I wish they didn't have, because I love the misdirection so much. And I'm so shocked when it actually becomes a horror and becomes Psycho that I wish the misdirection were better. I wish the title of the movie were different, and I wish they didn't say who the lead was. And sometimes you can't do that. You can't really hide it. When they did Seven, if I remember correctly, the opening titles I don't even know if there are opening titles, but I'm almost positive that they don't say anything about Kevin Spacey. And you find out, oh, holy shit, Kevin Spacey, at the end. Anyway, that was a spoiler. I'll have to make sure I note that. But, so the misdirection is so well done that when I saw this movie called Red Eye, and I believe it's Wes Craven, with Cillian Murphy, and I think it's Rachel McAdams. I might be wrong. She's brilliant in it. I might as well look it up because I love that movie. It's great. I've seen it plenty of times. Yes, it's Rachel McAdams, Cillian Murphy, Rachel McAdams. I love that movie because it too, like the whole first, now not quite as long, not 40 minutes, but because that movie is only about an hour and a half. Hour 25, I'm looking at it right now. And the first maybe 25 minutes of it, you're very misdirected because Cillian Murphy is such a sweet character and so charming that you don't expect him to be, holy shit, who he turns out to be. And you're like, fucking freak, like, oh my god, he's like this creepy guy, and anyway, I don't want to go into a review of Red Eye. What I'm saying is Red Eye has that same sort of misdirection, and I feel like it's so Alfred Hitchcock. It's so psycho. It's done very, very well, and not, unfortunately, not long enough. They give it away pretty quick because they've got to get into the story. And this one, the misdirection is done so well, but the title of the movie and the main character kind of ruin it a little bit. The only movie that I've seen that really comes to mind that was absolutely brilliant when it came to misdirection, held its own when it came to misdirection, that the misdirection was so beautifully done, it shocked me when I found out the truth of the misdirection, like what was really going on, is a movie called Nature of the Beast, which I'm pretty sure that probably none of you have heard of. If any, it may be one guy listening to this review is go, oh yeah, I know that movie. Anyway, with Lance Henriksen and Eric Roberts, oh my God, I am not going to give it away, but fuck, that movie is brilliant. And it shocked me in a way that no movie has ever shocked me, even to this day. Even to this day. And I own that movie. I love it, and I love watching it. But unfortunately, you can't watch that with new eyes. It's just one of those. It's one of those Usual Suspects, Kaiser Sose things that you cannot not see when you watch it. And I've probably given way too much away for Nature of the Beast, but absolutely brilliant. Anyway, so let's go on. The book says, after you were surprised by the end, did you feel a larger budget would have made this film better or worse? No, I think this movie was made brilliantly. I don't think it needed more money. It didn't need anything bigger. No. This movie was absolutely fantastic, just like Saw. I've got to bring that up, because I remember when that movie first came out, and they said it was such a low budget film. It cost like $1 million to make or something like that, and it made like 20 million or something like that in the box office. So it made more than its money back. I remember them saying it was such a low budget film, and we went and saw this, and I was so blown away. I literally told my friends, like, we got to go see this movie. It's so fantastic. And there's nothing, okay, I know the later ones have become like a gore fucking fest. The original is not gory. It's not. There's very little blood in the original. It's all situational, and it's horror. Of course it's horror, but it's well done, and it's written really, really well, and it's acted wonderfully, and the scenes are done so, and it was cheaply made. Honestly, for the time, $1 million, it was very cheaply made. And made a lot of money. But the reason I bring that up is because it didn't need more money to make it better. Absolutely not. And neither did this. This did not need more money to make it better. It was brilliantly done the way it was with the budget that they used. How would you spend the extra funds? I would make more movies. This is such a dumb question. Like, I literally put a bunch of question marks. Like, why in the world would they ask this? This is such a stupid question in this book, honestly. I can't believe they asked this and they don't ask about the budget. What would you spend the extra? You're fucking stupid. No. Oh, I guess it means, do you feel a larger budget would make this film better? What would you spend the extra funds on? I guess that's what they mean. But if you answer that question, do you feel the larger budget would have made this film better, and you say no, well, then the second question is irrelevant. It's stupid. And that's how I felt when I first read this question. I was like, no, that's stupid. Why? Because I wouldn't spend more. This movie is brilliant. So that question should be thrown out the window. Anything else you'd like to add? Yes. Why didn't you ask about the budget? Of course I would like to add something, because you didn't ask what this challenge was even based on. Low budget, big box office. Okay, so let's talk about that. This movie costs, and they have to estimate, because this was 1960, so I don't think they were keeping meticulous records, and they certainly didn't have IMDb back then, and they didn't have Box Office Mojo back then, so people were not paying attention to these kind of things. But on IMDb, it says the estimated budget for this film was $800 grand, 806. Okay, 800 grand, less than $1 million. Now, at the time, that was a lot of money. We're talking about 1960. Okay, so yes, it was a lot of money, but it grossed $32 million. So we are talking about a movie that made over 32 times its budget. So yes, this is a low budget, big box office film. It made a ton of money considered. Okay, so date challenge completed 10/7/2023, and my rating is 4 out of 5 stars. I love it. I think it's great. It's just it is an older film. I can't honestly say that it's a 5-star film. Anyway, let's get onto my notes. I've said this plenty of times. It's such a different era of film. If you just think of, okay, you have to give it a chance because it is very well made. I wouldn't lead you astray. Trust me, it is very well made. It's very well done. You just have to accept the fact this 1960. It was a different type of film, different type of acting, different type of music, different type of presentation. All of it is. If you watch. I had my friend's twins over, and they're like 9 or 10. I had them over the other night, and we watched the original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. And I was like watching it going, the action sequence are like, oh my God, they're horrible. They're campy as hell. It's like watching Power Rangers. I really was like, wow, this is like watching Power Rangers. And the special effects look like cartoon. They were so bad. It looked like cartoon. He looked like when he was moving, he looked literally like a piece of cartoon like rubber. Didn't look real. And I thought to myself, wow, when this movie came out, we loved it. When this movie came out, it was amazing. Like, we were all like crazy for it when Spider-Man came out with Tobey Maguire. Absolutely. And that was only, 2002, 2003. And then with superheroes that have progressed and what they look like now, and the special effects and the fight sequences are so completely different. The change from early 2000 to 2020 or 2018 even, the difference in film and the ability and how it looks and how great you can make it look. You just have to know that Psycho is of a different time. That doesn't mean it's not brilliant. It is. It still is. Anyway, let's move on. The music is great. I love the music. It's so moving and wonderful. It is overbearing. Again, it's a sign of the times. The music is overbearing, and it's supposed to be. And he did a really good job with it. I love that right away, that first scene in the hotel room. Like, first of all, like, you don't see either one of their belly buttons. Like, their pants or whatever are hiked up so high over their belly buttons that, again, it's the sign of the times, 1960. It's so funny to see that, and then see, those kind of scenes made nowadays where they probably would have both been absolutely naked in that scene nowadays. Whereas, back in 1960, they were definitely not naked, and even their belly buttons were covered up. I love that these two characters wanted to be together regardless of the circumstances, but the problem that they keep running into, the problem that they keep talking about is money. Money problems. He's paying alimony, and she doesn't have money to live, blah, 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 blah. I love this all feeds into the brilliant misdirection that this movie is about their relationship and about the money she steals. So I love that misdirection. And it starts literally from the first scene talking about they don't have money to do things, to be together, to get married, to live together, blah, blah, blah. When she goes back to the office and the guy comes in and says, "It's hot as fresh milk out there." What? I don't understand that. Like, what? I'm assuming this guy is Texan because of his hat. I mean, why else would they put that hat on him? The opening scene is all in Phoenix, in Phoenix, Arizona. So it's not a stretch of the imagination to believe this guy is from Texas. He doesn't have the thick Southern accent, no, but he has that hat. And why else would you put that cowboy hat on him unless you're going to say, Texan? But that saying, Texans have some funny sayings, and I lived in Texas for a couple of years, and I've heard plenty of them, and this one just makes no sense. Hot as fresh milk? I don't understand that. If it's Phoenix, I'm assuming it's, in the 90s, maybe 100. Well, no, it says it's December, right? So it shouldn't be that hot. I don't understand. Okay, whatever. Maybe it's just a mess up. Why is it that hot in December? Interesting. Okay. They make such a big deal about this $40,000 in cash. Like, the opening scene, they're talking about they don't have money, and then this big deal about here's 40,000 in cash. And then what's his line? I don't carry more than I can afford to lose. And you're already thinking, like, she's gonna take this fucking money. We just had this scene where she was talking about she needs it and she loves him and they want to get married but they don't have the money, and here's this 40 grand just sitting there. And in 1960, 40 grand nowadays is nothing. You can't even buy you might be able to buy a used car on 40 grand, but 40 grand nowadays is nothing. But back then it was a lot. He was buying a house with 40 grand, So anyway, they make this big deal about this money in cash. His boss, the boss even says, I don't want it staying in the office. Take it to the bank right away. Like, I don't want, they make a really big deal about this cash. And it adds to the tension. I love it. It really does. It really does a good job. I love it when she, right away, like, it adds to the suspense, not the tension. It adds to the mystery, and you're like, oh my god. What adds to this the tension, what adds to the real, like, oh my god, what's going on, and the panic in the situation is when she's leaving town. That whole scene where she's packing is kind of cool, and she keeps looking at the money, and that's fine. You already know what she's going to do because she hasn't gone to the bank. She's gone home, and she's packing. You get it. But what I love really starts to add to that tension is when she sees her boss. When she's driving out of town, she sees her boss, and she's like, oh, shit. And the music, again, overbearing. It's the sign of the times. The music tells you how to feel. Boom! Right away. That music is really good and really intense. And her face and her, her acting is really good. But that, it's really, really good. And then, she goes on the highway and she takes off. And then what also adds to it is, the police officer finds her the next morning. She pulled over to sleep. And he finds her and he's questioning her and wondering why. And that whole scene, she's so, like, caught off guard that she's acting peculiar. And he's, like, he's very curious about, is there something wrong? Is there something wrong? Adds to the whole tension as well. And the constant music. And like I said, it adds to the misdirection of, like, we think that this movie is all about the money and she's trying to escape and to a better life. We know where she's going. She's gonna go see Sam. Slower paced movies. So back then, nowadays we can't stand, it's part of the culture of, like, everything on your phone, everything readily accessible. We and little short clips of everything. We cannot stand, unfortunately, in films, if they try to make a film like this nowadays where they took their time. The story has very simple plot points, very simple pieces to it. There's not a whole lot of junk going on, like 4 different storylines. There is one storyline, and we are taking our time with it. It's an hour 50. We're taking our time with it. And I appreciate the part where she goes to buy a car and she goes into the bathroom and they actually show her count $700. The fact that the $100 bills look real, I love that too. And that she literally counts all 7 of them. We never would have showed that in film nowadays. There's no way. There's no point to it. And we want, our attention span, unfortunately, as film goers, are so short that we wouldn't be able to show that. But I believe that it adds really good tension to it. It gets you to understand her situation and what's going on, that she stole this money. She's, counting it out in secret. This police officer's across the street watching her, blah, 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 all this stuff. And we're wondering what's going to happen. What is she doing? What she's going to have. I appreciate it. I love that they take their time and they're like, this is a very simple, quote unquote, simple-ish story. And it adds to the misdirection that the movie is about the money. He's constantly focused on the money. And I love that. Even when she takes it to the hotel, she puts it. They're constantly focused on the money. Where's the money? Show the money again. Where do we remember the money going? You know, the whole first half of this movie, they're very concerned about. Actually, the whole movie, they're very concerned about this money. Whereas this movie has nothing to do really about this money. Money is inconsequential. I love her worried voiceover where she constantly thinks about what the possibilities of what's going to happen, like what her boss says on Monday morning when she doesn't show up, or what the police is talking to the auto salesman, the car salesman about. You know, it's really cool. Like, and nowadays you wouldn't be able to get away with that. A friend of mine said the voiceovers in the original Dune film like just don't work, and I'm like, they do work. You just have to accept that that's what we're watching and that's what we're listening to. And so in Psycho, the same thing. The voiceover works. Her voiceover works if you just accept that that's what it is, and don't try to go, well, modern film, they don't do that. Who cares about what they do in modern film? Watch this film for the film that it is. And I think the voiceover works really well and adds tension and adds like her anxiety of the situation. Absolutely. And the music as well does that. And a lot of times, especially in older films like this, the music is trying to tell you how to feel. Whereas nowadays, the music is not so imposing and not so like, aside from like big action films the music tries to tell you how to feel a lot. Okay, it's tense, it's crazy, and it's intense, and they try to get you to feel that way sometimes. But back then, the music was so overbearing and absolutely was telling you how to feel, and it does a great job of it in this film. When she gets to the Bates Motel, I fucking love the Bates Motel. So I've been there. I have the fortune of living in Los Angeles, and I have been to Universal Studios more than once. And yes, I went there one time during Halloween Horror Nights, where you can literally walk around everywhere. And one of the places you get to walk around is the Bates Motel. And yes, I have been there, and I've walked around there, and it is exactly like it's in the movie. It's fantastic. It's great. I loved it. And speaking of which, I mean, the show Bates Motel, I own all the seasons. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I loved it to death. Oh my God, the acting is brilliant. Vera Farmiga like blew my mind. I had seen her in a bunch of stuff, but when she played Norman's mom, oh my God, she blew my mind. She was fantastic. Speaking of the acting, so Anthony Perkins, again, like I said in this movie, is so fantastic and so unassuming and charming and to be honest, like, he's totally cute. Like, it's 1960. I wasn't alive back then, but watching it now, I'm like, he's totally my type. He's super cute. And watching the show, The Bates Motel, Freddie Highmore, again, so cute and so charming, totally my type, and sweet and unassuming. And you're like, this is Norman Bates, who we know as Psycho, and it's so off-putting that he's so sweet and charming. Again, much like Red Eye, Cillian Murphy is so sweet and so charming in the first half of that movie, and then he turns into this like crazed, like, oh my God, the psycho. Like, he's not literally a psycho in Red Eye, but like Anthony Perkins and Freddie Highmore is in the Bates Motel or Psycho. But that same, like, he's so sweet and so charming, and then he turns and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I thought this person was so, cute and charming, and like, oh my God, he's such a creep. They both do such a great job. Such great acting by so many, all three of them are do great acting at what they do. Freddie, I already did that. I already said that. Freddie Highmore. That decision when she shows up, and the decision to put her in room 1, when he goes to the keys, and I think the first one he almost grabs is 3, I think. Then he kind of goes and thinks about it and thinks about it, and then he goes like to 2 and then 1, and then he decides on 1. Now, he's already said the 12 rooms, 12 vacancies. He says that multiple times in the film. So he's already said that, so we know that the whole place is empty. Do we think at this point, if we're trying to watch this with new eyes, do we think at this point, like, he's just trying to make a decision, or do we think there's a reason behind his decision? Actually, if I really just take myself out of it, I don't feel like there's a reason behind his decision. I just feel like, okay, the whole place is empty, and he's just trying like, well, what room do I put her in? I'll just put her in this one. You know, I don't think that there's a reason behind it, which we find out later. His smile is adorable. He's so adorable. Anthony Perkins. The Bates Motel stationery. He's so sweet. In case you want to make your friends jealous. Like, okay, the writing is really well done, but Anthony Perkins does such a great job at taking the writing and making this character what it is. Like the classic that it is. And I love Freddie Highmore. Freddie Highmore is great. He didn't try to be Anthony Perkins, and that's good. He tried to do his own thing, because Anthony Perkins in Psycho is absolutely a classic. A classic. And watching him do it is just like, wow, he is so good. He is so sweet and charming. And like I said, he's just adorable. And his smile, and he's like the stationery, making you want to make your friends jealous. He just... And then he's everything. He does such a good job. I'll be back with my trusty umbrella. Like I said, you know, all the little things he does, yes, the writing was good, but the way he does it says a lot about, you know, Anthony Perkins. The mother yelling when they have that argument. Okay, every time the mother yells, like, do we really believe that we can hear her that clearly from the hotel? I know it's semi-close, but still, that's in a completely closed up house. Okay, I get we can't move on with the story if we don't hear her, but do we really believe that we hear her that clear? Okay, you got to suspend disbelief to a certain degree. This is why this is not a 5-star movie. You know, you got to kind of just go, okay, I get it. We wouldn't be able to move on if we didn't hear them arguing and hear her, you know, her disdain for this woman, and she's not coming up here and having lunch or having dinner or whatever. Oh, another great line when he says, I wish you could apologize for other people. And it just brings home the fact he's so ashamed. So it brings home multiple facts. One, you believe his mother is up there. You absolutely believe his mother is up there, and he's a slave to her to a degree. And you also believe that he's so sweet and charming and just such a real and grounded person. That line is so well done. That line is well written and well performed. You know, I wish you could apologize for other people. It makes you as the audience believe what you are seeing. Absolutely. And then, you know, the big line, the big memorable line, you know, a boy's best friend is his mother. I totally believe him. I believe when he says that is not just a corny line. Anthony Perkins does it so well that, and he's fleshed out this character so well with all the other lines and his mannerisms, that when he says that line, I believe he believes it. Which is, it's a hard line to get people to believe that you believe it, and he does a great job. So Norman's shock when Marion suggests that his mother be put, quote unquote, someplace, and he goes off on that tirade about, like, you know, a psycho ward. People always call it someplace, and she's that's not the right place for her, and she's harmless and blah blah blah. It just brings home the fact, I believe she is up there. He is so shocked and disturbed and upset by the fact that she would suggest putting his mother in a psycho ward, and he is and I believe that she is up there. Absolutely. Because of the way he reacts. Like, how dare you say she should be in a psycho ward? You know, it's brilliant, brilliant. The Peephole. Oh, fucking hell. Okay, I'm just going to do it. The remake of Psycho was fucking disgusting. Why was it fucking disgusting? Because they promoted the remake of Psycho as a shot-for-shot remake of Psycho. And when you watch it and Vince Vaughn is fucking jerking off while he's looking through the peephole, pissed me off to so fucking bad. I can't express how bad it fucking pissed me off. I was like, this is disgusting. It does not belong in this film. And if you're going to make a shot for shot, you need to make a shot for shot. And I will never watch that movie, that remake again. Ever, not ever, not ever. And it's not Vince Vaughn's fault. It was whoever made the fucking movie. And I don't care to look it up and find out who did it. It's a travesty. Travesty. If you want to make a movie based on or a remake, fine. Don't make a shot-for-shot remake and then fuck it up like that. That is not Norman's character. Norman, Anthony Perkins, 1960 Psycho, would never have done that. Never. I would be shocked to even think that Norman, as a full-grown man, would ever even masturbate. Ever. Because of how overbearing his mother is, and that he's his mother most. What does the guy say at the end? What does the detective say at the end? He is sometimes always mother, but never always Norman. Never always Norman. Okay? It's just not in the character for him ever to do that. Ever to do that. He doesn't watch her undress. He looks at her, she is semi-undressed. He would never have watched her in the shower. He would never have... Okay, let's move on. I'm just so pissed at that. I'm so pissed that they did that. It's so outside the character, but we need to move on. Okay, the murder scene is a shock. Oh my God, it's so great. I did not... He talks about his mother being sick. I don't expect her to show up. And if you're trying to watch the movie with new eyes, you're trying to watch and say, this is not Norman, this is... You believe it's his mother. And you're like, what? Holy shit. It's a shock. It's well done. It's 1960, people. You have to accept that it's 1960. And when you accept that, you go, wow, it really is well done. The music is brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. The music is brilliant. We think about it today. Everybody thinks about it today. Much like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. People hear that music and they know what it's from. So the music is very well done at that point. Excuse me, and the shots, the knife coming down, it never actually touches her, but we believe it. We believe she's killed, and Janet Leigh did such a great job at that point, especially afterwards when she's laying on the ground. All the shots, even the shot with the shower curtain coming down, it's so brilliant. It's so wonderful. This is why this is a classic. This is why this is a classic, because these things were very, very well done. And she's laying on the ground, and I love that, you can see hints of life in her, but it's going. And I don't know if that was done on purpose or not, but it looks great. You can see those little hints of movement, little hints of life still left in her, but she's dying. She's practically dead. She's life is leaving her, and I love it. It's very well done. Anthony Perkins does such a great job when Norman comes down and the shock of seeing the dead body. Again, we hear that screaming, mother, the blood, and then he runs out. Okay, you got to suspend disbelief. You heard it because you were supposed to hear it. If you didn't hear that, it wouldn't further the movie. But Anthony Perkins' his acting when Norman comes down and sees the body, and his disgust and his shock, but his wanting to protect his mother, and then everything they go through. Again, movies nowadays never, ever, ever would have done this. The time it takes, I would say 3-5 minutes, and that's a lot. 3 to 5, if you really think about it, 3 to 5 minutes maybe a little more, in an hour and 50 minutes. They've taken this entire time to show Norman cleaning up after his mother, moving the body, cleaning the shower with the mop, cleaning the floor, rolling her up, moving the car into position, putting her in, going in, trying to take all hints of her away. And what do? They show them the newspaper. Why? The money is there. They've shown that multiple times. Again, he is constantly focused on the money. I love it. It's brilliant. Because this movie has nothing to do with the money, but we are focused on this money. This is what causes so much problem for him. I keep saying that it doesn't have anything to do with the money, but to a degree that's not true. Yes, it doesn't have anything to do with the money because that has zero motivation to the real story, which is Norman, which is the psycho, has zero. But it's what gets her into trouble, and eventually it's what gets him into trouble. This money, if it weren't a factor, the detective would not be looking for her, and everybody would not be so concerned about what happened to her without this money. If she were just a missing person, she was just a missing person. But we have this $40,000 that she stole that makes it a motivation to keep looking for her. So it's made it a problem with it. So I do say that the money doesn't matter simply because it doesn't matter from Norman's point of view, but it does matter as far as the movie because without it we wouldn't have something to follow. I get that. I totally get that. And that's fine. But what I love about it is it really, as far as Norman's concerned, as far as Psycho is concerned, this money, it's irrelevant. And I love it that he focused on it so much because without being important, it is. It's a contradiction, but it's great. Anyway, this whole scene where he cleans up would not fly today. They would just would not do that. They would show real quick clips and move on. 30 seconds, move on. But they literally take 3 minutes or 5 minutes or something like that, and it's very well done because Anthony Perkins does such a great job of being in the character and moving as the character and looking and just he just does such a great job. I love that scene when he cleans up. Okay. Oh, he does such a good job. He does such a good job at cleaning up and then putting the car in the swamp that you start to think, has he done this before? As the audience, I'm absolutely going, has he done this before? He seems, even though the shock of it was a shock, he also seems semi-calm. And he knows what to do, and he knows how to clean up, and he does such a good job, and he nothing seems to be what do I do? No, he seems to know what. And so that makes me think, has he done this before? Huh. We find out at the end, yes, he has. If you don't believe me, they talk about the 2 other girls that are missing. Anyway, he has done this before. What's he eating out of his pocket? Okay, so I made this note before I saw later on. Okay, so every once in a while he's reaching in his pocket and eating something. When he tells her he's not hungry, he brings her dinner, he's not hungry. But when she goes into her room, once she goes into her room, he pulls something out and puts it, and he's eating something. And we don't know what it is. And a couple of times he reaches into his coat pocket and he eats something. And you're like, what is that? What is going on? And then, later on. So I made that note. And then what happens? He dumps the car. And then the sister comes looking for her and goes to Sam's shop, the guy that she was, Marion was seeing. And then the private detective comes and says, I'm looking for blah, 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 blah. And then the private detective decides to go out to a bunch of hotels to see if she checked in anywhere, and he ends up at the Bates Motel, and he meets Norman, and then what does Norman have in his hand? He has a paper bag that says K, candy, K, corn, candy corn. And he asks him, you want a piece of candy? And he's eating candy corn out of this bag, and I'm like, that's probably what's in his pocket. He's probably eating candy corn out of his pocket. But which, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna do it. The question. I'm just gonna do it. Challenge number 3. Low budget, big box office Psycho. Which character were you able to most identify with or connect with? In which way? Norman Bates. Candy corn. Why? Because candy corn has always been my favorite. Absolutely my favorite candy. Halloween candy since I was a kid. I love candy corn. And why? It's made with honey. It's not completely honey. It's not all honey, but it is made with honey, with natural. And I love honey. I use honey on my pancakes instead of syrup. I don't like syrup. I like honey. Oh, every once in a while I like pure maple syrup. That's fine. But honey is what I use the most. I use honey in oatmeal. I use honey in so many things. I love honey. And so candy corn has always been like one of my favorite Halloween candies because it's made with honey. So I identify with Norman Bates because of the honey, because of the candy corn. Oh, that interview. So speaking of when the private detective Arbogast shows up, when he shows up and they go into the room, and that whole conversation with Arbogast, the whole interview with Arbogast, where he's asking about this woman who's disappeared. She's not really in trouble, just trying to find her. And Norman tries to hide the fact that she was there, but then gets flummoxed a couple of times because he gets found out a couple. It's so well done. The writing is brilliant because without the writing, you wouldn't know how to get him into these problems and then out of these problems by what he says and blah, 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 blah. But then the acting is very, very well done at that point, too. That's such a beautiful scene when he's interrogating all the little pieces that he uncovers. And then, Norman keeps going back on his word and what. And then finally, Norman gets frustrated enough to tell him to leave or ask him to leave. It's a great scene. It's very, very well done. I love it. And then Arbogast, when Arbogast gets killed, is such a shock. When he calls and tells, I'm going to go back and talk to the mother. And then he goes into the house and he goes to look for the mother, and then she comes out of nowhere and kills it. I get that it's corny. This is another one of those things where I get that we're watching a 1960 film. It is kind of corny, especially when it comes to these sequences, action sequences. And when he falls backwards down the stairs, yes, it is kind of corny, but it's also shocking when she runs out of the room and she stabs him on the staircase and he dies. Whoa! Not expecting that. I wasn't expecting to. I wasn't expecting that. It's a shock. As corny as it is, it's a shock. And then what happens? We go to the sheriff. We end up going to the sheriff's house, and the sheriff wants to call and says, basically everything's fine. And then we find out. If we thought we were shocked before, here's the big kicker. Here's the big shock. Norman's mom has been dead for 10 years. And we're like, what? Holy shit. Okay, it's hard for me to maybe it's hard for me to be believable doing a review about Psycho when we already know who Norman Bates is and that his mom's not. And we try to watch this movie with new eyes. We try to experience it with new eyes. This is why I love immersing myself in film, so I can really just try to be in the moment of the world that the film is creating. And the same thing for books. I love just being in the moment of the world that the book is creating. I don't know how many times I had seen Misery before I read the book. And still, I tried to allow myself to let go of James Caan and Kathy Bates. Let go of that. And the brilliance of Rob Reiner. and just experience the book when I read it. All, 400 pages of it. I read it in like 3 days or some shit like that. I read it real quick. It was so well written. I loved it so much. But just experience the world of it and not know what's going to happen. Please just let it go. And so when I watch this movie, I try to let go of the fact that I already know Norman is dressing up as his mom. He's psycho. He's fucking crazy. And just live in the world of the film, that this is such a shock when he gets killed by, I'm not expecting that, by Mrs. Bates. I'm not, and then when the sheriff says she's been dead, and it's like, what? I just saw this guy get killed by her. The main character from the first half of the film, Janet Leigh, she gets killed by her. Like, what do you mean she's not alive? You have to just be in the moment. I love it. I think it's great. I think it's well done. Alfred Hitchcock did such a great job. So now that we know she's not alive, now that we know she's dead, and that argument when he's like, I have to hide you. People are coming. No, you're not gonna put me in the cellar. Oh my God. That just makes that scene so much better. We know she's not alive, but we're hearing her, and he carries her down to the cellar, and we're like, what the fuck is going on? Brilliant. This movie is very well done. If you just live in the moment of the film, it is very well done. Very well done. Carries her down to the cellar. I love it. Okay, so again, as corny as it is, I love that scene when her sister comes. What is her sister's name? Not the actress. Lila Crane. Vera Miles plays Lila Crane. When her sister comes to try to find out something, and then Norman realizes something's up. Excuse me. And he comes in and he runs up the stairs, and she goes down to the cellar and discovers that Mrs. Bates is a corpse. And then Norman comes in dressed as his mother, as his mother, comes in to kill her. As I get it, it's corny. I get it. And then Sam comes in and grabs him and wrestles the knife away, and he's struggling, and there's more than physical torment going on there. They've discovered that he's not him. His wig has fallen off. There's more than just physical being physically restrained, and that's why he's like that. Yes, it's a little corny, but I get it. I understand. There's more than just Norman physically being restrained. At this point, he is fully, does she have a name? I keep saying Mrs. Bates or his mother. I don't think she even has a name in the film. And that's fine. That's fine. So, Norman's mom. So he is fully, psychologically, is fully the mom. Fully Mrs. Bates. Fully. And being restrained, and then having your wig torn off and your clothes, and discovered that you're not, is a shock to his psyche. And I think that's also what's going on in that scene, and I love it. I think it's very well done. And then we find out in that whole, I love the whole ending exposition by the psychologist or whatever, the doctor. That whole exposition, we have to have it. Again, it's not the way we would do film nowadays, I don't think, at all. That scene, you might be able to get away with it if it was adjusted a little bit, but the way it is in this film, we wouldn't be able to get away with it in film now. But then, it's very well done, it's very brilliant, and I love how he goes through everything and explains everything to us so we know what's going on. And then we find out that Norman killed his mom and his mom's lover. And we had thought earlier, when the sheriff says that she had committed suicide. She had killed her lover and then committed suicide by poisoning them both. And then we find out at the end that Norman actually killed them. Why? Because he felt like he was being misplaced. He felt that they were together for so long, it was just them two after his father died, that they had built such a bond together that when she started seeing somebody, he felt like he was being replaced, and he reacted in that way and killed them. And that, oh, whoa, there's a whole other level to, who he is. And then the doctor talks about how he is never fully Norman. Like, since that moment, he has never been fully Norman. Sometimes he is fully Mrs. Bates, but absolutely never fully Norman. Crazy. Crazy. And then that wonderful line at the end. But like one of my favorite lines of the whole film. Yes, I get that there are great lines in this film, and I put that, a boy's best friend is his mother, because that's probably the most notable. But one of my absolutely favorite lines is at the very end when she's like, why, she wouldn't even harm a fly. I won't even swat that fly. I hope they are looking. And they'll say, why, she's so harmless, she wouldn't even harm a fly. And that's how the movie ends. Another brilliant ending to it, a brilliant ending line to a film. I've talked about how, certain lines from certain movies are brilliantly done for the end of the film. This is another one. Why, she wouldn't even hurt a fly. And they literally end on that. And there are no end credits, because back then we did the credits in the beginning of the film, and at the end we're done. And it just ends that way. So well done. Okay, so Psycho. Not a lot of people. I mean, people absolutely think it's a classic, and I think that a lot of people nowadays would probably watch it and laugh at it. But I watch it and love it. I watch it and experience it for what it was, and love it, and am very entertained by it. This is not a film where I watch and laugh because it's so outdated and ridiculous, which there are some films I do that, absolutely, but this one is not one of them. It's very well done. Psycho. If you haven't seen it, I say give it a chance, absolutely. There's nothing in it that I would shy away from. I wouldn't, I would show it to my friend's twins that are 9 years old. Would he allow that? I don't know, but I would show it to them because there's nothing in this film that I don't think anybody could watch. Very well done. Okay, so Psycho. It is still October. This is just the first week of October. Let's see if I can find at least 3 more horror films, 2 of which will be on the poster and in the book for October. Thanks a lot for listening, and hopefully I'll get another video out to you in a week or less.